Vanity of vanities, says the teacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. It's from Ecclesiastes, the first chapter. If you stumble upon Ecclesiastes and you aren't prepared for it, you could easily read it as a depressing, hopeless view of our human existence. Maybe that's why the cynic in me kind of likes Ecclesiastes. All is vanity. Otherwise stated, nothing matters, so why pretend it does? Why try to make meaning out of this life? It's just all vanity anyway. Vanity in Ecclesiastes is a common English translation of the Hebrew word hevel, a word that shows up a whopping 38 times in the book of Ecclesiastes. For comparison, it only shows up 35 times in the rest of the Hebrew scriptures. But it is one of those really tricky Hebrew words. It's one that's difficult to translate using a single English word. Vanity doesn't quite do it justice. It's more concept than translation. Hevel can be described as breath, or vapor, or wind, or smoke, wispy smoke. These are all fleeting and temporary things. Can't quite catch my breath. Just, like when I walk up a few flights of stairs. Anyway, says the teacher in Ecclesiastes, all is hevel. It all is this fleeting and temporary thing, like breath, like vapor, like wind, like smoke here 1 minute, and gone the next. If all is hevel, if life is hevel, then what is the point of this life? What is the point of any and all of this? This is a fair question, I think. And if we stop our reading of Ecclesiastes here, we could understandably succumb to the cynical, hopeless, depressing reading and interpretation of Ecclesiastes, as many have done. To do so, however, would be a shame, because there is much for us to learn from this teacher of wisdom literature that we call Ecclesiastes. In my sermon a few weeks ago, I said this: we are an either-or society that lives in a black or white world. There's no room for gray, but with Jesus, it's never quite that simple. Allow me to modify this slightly. With God, it's never quite that simple. We can chase and accumulate things in this temporal life. We can go after wealth, possessions, fame, likes. Speaking of, like this video, right? Power, influence. The list of things that we can go after and try to accumulate and chase is endless. But remember, all is hevel. We can never fully grasp, hold on to, keep all these things. How do I hold on to a like? All is hevel. This is the reality that all must face. But that doesn't mean that all is meaningless. This is the black or white interpretation of Ecclesiastes. The teacher goes on to offer us hope, grays things up, so to speak, mixes it up for us, makes it so we can't think in our black and white ways. Reminds us that with God, it's never quite that simple. Says the teacher from Ecclesiastes 2, chapter 24. Chapter 2, verse 24. There is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. So, that means that God is the giver of gifts, food and drink and vocation, which is my interpretation of the word toil. God gives us the gifts of food and drink and vocation, the things that we do every day in this life. And in these God's desire for us is to find joy, to derive pleasure from these gifts that we have been given. Seeking beyond these things is vanity. It's just grasping at smoke that will never be able to stay in our hands.